Good to be here with you, Alexandra. Really nice to chat about this subject.
Great to
And
be here with you, Leslie, too.
great, good. And we met before a couple of times, and we had a good long chat about DPPs recently. And we're just going to have a chat here, aren't we? We're just going to talk about the whole situation with DPPs and what the future kind of holds. But let me give a little bit introduction to the kind of the context of our talk. And I mean, digital product passports are anticipated to be adopted by the EU and mandated by 2026 and between 2026 and 2030. And the EU have introduced digital product passports as a key component of the proposed Eco Design for Sustainable Product regulations, which entered into force July 2024. Now, DPPs will bring data into every wardrobe like never before. And this was the kind of starting point for thinking about this conversation. What does that mean? Imagine opening your wardrobe and seeing not just a collection of clothes, but, but like a portal to a world of data. Each garment telling a story, its origins, its environmental impact, its journey through the supply chain, and even how it might be styled or recycled. Is this the future of fashion, where data empowers us to make more informed choices, consume more consciously, and engage with our clothing in a whole new way? The consumers will unlock a personalized shopping experience with recommendations tailored to their style, fit, and values. Imagine an app that suggests outfits based on your existing wardrobe, or outfits based on the weather, or even the social calendar. And retailers will gain unprecedented insights into consumer behavior, enabling them to curate collections that resonate with their target audience and minimize waste. Manufacturers and designers will harness data to streamline production, reduce their environmental footprint, and create innovative, sustainable materials. Sounds wonderful. Now, the
Sounds
data
amazing.
driven does is
Sounds like a
incredible.
dream. Sounds like the future, which is going to
I
happen
think it
quite
is.
soon. And what I would like to add to this is that digital product passports, it's not just another trend in digital fashion, it's much more. If we look at the past and we see digital fashion industry, what happened in the past few years, we see different trends coming. AR try-ons, metaverses, NFTs when it all started, right? But
Yeah.
digital product passports, they carry more value than any of those trends. It's not just a trend, it's a regulation. So it's not just the cool tool that brands might have or would want to adopt, it's something they will need. And what you described, I loved what you said about the future, how you have everything in one place and you can choose your outfit depending on the weather. Yes, a digital product passport is one of those tools that can help us get to that point in the nearest future. So I think it's important that to mention that digital product passports are one of the first regulations that the European Union introduced to the fashion industry, because all the industries in the world have regulations, while fashion industry didn't have this before.
Hmm.
So brands, even if they wanted to produce sustainable items, it was not regulated. So everybody was doing what they want, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the idea why they decided to introduce that regulation is because fashion is one of the worst industries for our environment. Let's just talk numbers. So, in order to produce one cotton t shirt, we waste 2,700 liters of water. And that is a crazy amount. That means that Some people will only wear it once or throw it away, or the t-shirt will just rip and that's done, it's in the bin. Like, we need to talk numbers and we need to see numbers. So if we're talking about fashion industry, in total, fashion industry is responsible for around 10% of global carbon dioxide emissions. It's a really big number. And 35% of all ocean microplastics originate from synthetic materials used to produce clothes. At the moment, less than 1% of all the garments in the world are recycled back into the industry. So these are just some of the numbers. Another number, which might be interesting just to understand how big the problem is that fashion industry is the second largest consumer of water in the world. So 79 trillion liters of water is used annually in the industry. So it's not just talking about how bad the industry is. There are numbers behind it. And that regulation is one of the first steps, how we can manage this whole impact, how we can make the industry a better place. So having this regulation in place can help consumers make well-informed choices.
Absolutely.
It can help brands care about their production more, because when you have a regulation, you cannot lie, it's illegal. You cannot hide the information from the customer, it's illegal. And people have tried to do this before, but we need to again talk about it globally. Why other initiatives didn't work well? Because when it's not regulated, at the end of the day, fashion brands don't have enough capacity to put all these technologies into place. They care about surviving, earning money. There is a lot more in the industry than this. When you have a regulation, it's a psychological aspect. You see, customers, they get used to having digital passports in items. So when you see digital passports for every item, you start caring about it sooner or later. At least that information is visible to you.
Could I ask you some specific questions around about DPPs? Because I think you're starting to cover some of the areas that I want to ask you specifically about. So I think you were just starting to touch on that point there. What would you say, what in your experience, being very much involved in this whole area and the whole development round about DPPs, what would you say are the main hurdles to widespread DPP adoption in the fashion industry? And how can these be overcome? Yeah, for example, are brands ready to embrace this level of transparency? And what role will regulation play in ensuring that brands are embracing this?
It's a great question because, okay, let's go again a bit more into data. We've done a research and I have some interesting information from brands themselves. So again, we have different players in the market. We have luxury brands, we have the top players, right? Big groups. And we have smaller brands. Only in the UK, there are around 5,000 brands that operate on the market. And most of them are small brands, independent brands. In the EU, the numbers are higher. It's around 10,000. Again, active, maybe 70% of them being active. And again, most of them are small independent brands. Even though, you know, the industry, like we have the top luxury groups, the top players, and then we have small brands. And for the big groups, it's easier to adapt to passports because they have people who work in innovations. They have budgets for innovation departments. And For them, it's easier to add product passports into their supply chains. But for smaller brands, these regulations, it's really difficult for them to add passports to their items. So exactly when we ask smaller brands in our research, we ask, okay, so what is the main challenge for you? They all say, we have a lack of information from the suppliers about the materials, about is it actually sustainable? Because suppliers can say anything they want, but the brand needs to put that information out there and they're responsible for it. So it's important to understand. So there's not enough data on recycling. There's not enough data on supply chain. And smaller brands don't have budgets even for a separate person to sit and dig in and, get that information out and add it somewhere. Smaller brands, again, are just trying to survive. Mm-hmm. So I think a regulation like that will not only help brands, but will help the whole supply chain, manufacturers, production companies, right? If they will know that brands require that information, they will start taking this also more serious. So they will add that information. But again, large groups also are facing challenges. So we see a lot of brands that already started to implement digital product passports. Richmond Group for their watches. We can see brands like Dior adding NFC tags with digital product passports with the information, but they're not applying it to every single garment yet. Because in order to do so, they need to disrupt the whole supply chain. And imagine having a massive company with thousands of employees, with different productions, with different manufacturers, factories. It's a whole system, it's a whole ecosystem in their company. And in order to add digital product passports and to gain all that information, it's not a thing you can do within a day. You need to disrupt the whole system. You need to redo the whole system. So this is a big, big challenge for them. That's why they only do it for drops.
And of course, the regulations have to be regulated in the sense that how can you be sure that the information the suppliers or the brands are giving for the DPPs is correct, is truthful, is honest? How can you be sure of that? How can you tell?
Well, the rumor has it that you will be fined for putting false information about the garment. And I think it's important because this is the only way how we can do it, because you need to be fined, unfortunately, if you misinform your consumers, because how else? How else?
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, to actually check on that information will be very difficult for a consumer, won't it? How will a consumer, and would a consumer question? I mean, if the consumer was buying a garment, looks at the digital product passport and sees, my goodness, this pair of jeans only took 2,000 litres of water to make. That's amazing because these other ones take a lot more, so I'll buy these. And then they found out, how would they find out that actually that pair of jeans they bought took 10,000 litres of water? How would you find that out? How would you get that information?
Well, this is only up to brands. They should be regulated on that level. So brands should be responsible for any information that they put out there. You see, when you produce a car, you cannot put false information out there about the engine or about the materials, right?
Yeah, but a car, you could kill yourself if you had a dodgy engine, you know. I mean,
Exactly,
you're not
exactly.
going to kill
But it's
yourself with
regulated.
a,
It's regulated
yeah, yeah.
on the
It's reg.
governmental level. Because you see, when we come to this, and one thing I wanted to mention actually before is that, you see, our economy is built in a way that in order to earn more, you need to produce more and people need to buy more. And that is a thing that doesn't match sustainability in any way. And a regulation like that should slow down this whole process, a regulation from the government. So if a brand says that, okay, this t-shirt was produced from, I don't know, 100% organic cotton, and we only wasted 1,000 liters of water, and it was made in France, and we didn't waste any energy, or transport costs were like zero. And then somehow the government finds out that this information is false.
Which it must be. Transport costs
Exactly.
money.
Exactly. And if they find out, that regulation, yeah, the brand will be fine. It will be in press. It will go public, like any other case you have in the world. And fashion should not be excluded from that. See a lot of brands, when we started to gather information from smaller brands who stated to be sustainable, locally produced, and we started to gain information about, okay, let's create digital passports for you, and please add the information about your supply chains, about materials, sources, and everything. So even smaller brands, a lot of them, they were like, oh, we actually cannot add that information. And we figured out that a lot of brands, even small brands, hide a lot of information about the materials. For me, it was shocking at that point, because I would never imagine probably brands like that, hyping on the sustainability topic, because for me it's a maybe sensitive topic, because we need to care about, the world, about our environment. But smaller brands do, large brands do. They don't want to add all that information. And I think, again, the only way how to do so is to have the regulation, to have it controlled by the government or some special, let's say, unit in the government who checks that, tracks that, like with every other industry, again.
It's going to cost a lot of money, isn't it, to monitor
Absolutely.
this? Can I ask you, because we don't see digital product passports at the moment, or they're not commonplace at the moment. What do they look like? When we go into a store in a few years' time, the garments all have data, i.e., they've got digital product passports on them. What's the digital product passport going to look like? And what will be the consumer's experience, or what will the experience be for the consumer looking at that thing?
So let's say a digital product passport is a digital identity of a physical garment. So it's basically a link. Simplifying things, it's a link. And that link can be connected either to a QR code or an NFC tag, which is a small tag that can be added to a label, care label, embedded into the item. It's not even visible most of the time. Or it can be embedded into a physical label right now and can be hanging on the garment, right? So if it's not presented in a physical store and you don't want to add it, by regulation, you can just add that digital passport on the website. Again, it's like a link. The regulation right now is actually really simple. The only information that they require from brands is to have the materials, source of origin, and production information. For now, because again, it will take time for brands to get there, they're making it really simple for them. Basic information. And that information should be embedded into that link. So how does it look now? The cases we have in the market. So if it's a watch, you can have a physical passport, like a small tag, a label, with either a QR code or an NFC tag. An NFC tag is a better way to do it, because an NFC tag, you cannot, just, if it's embedded into the item, you cannot just, cut it out or throw it away or lose it like you can do with a physical, small, separate label, right? So I think NFC tags is something that we will see more, and a lot of brands are getting to it. Again, the problem with NFC tags is, again, the production. When do you add that NFC tag? If you have a small collection, you can do it in-house after the production, when you receive it to your warehouse. But if it's a mass production, you need to do it there at the manufacturer. You need to link those NFC tags to digital product passports. It's time consuming. You don't have special people in-house to do so. It's complicated. And the industry, again, there's enough of problems brands have. So they don't want to make it complicated. But I still think that companies, tech companies, brands, they're all working on it. And this will be resolved sooner or later. So I think in the future, nearest future, the way how it's going to look is like, you're a customer. You come in the store, you see the garment, take your phone out, you tap on the garment, you have an NFC tag inside the product, and it says, hey, I'm a digital product passport. So you claim the ownership, you check all the information on it, you engage with the digital product passport, you can add the item to your wardrobe. See how it looks with a virtual try-on. You can check how much water was actually used. You can see the certificates, you can see all the information. If you buy something on resale, you can even see the ownership history. That's something that you can do now already that exists on the market. So yeah.
You buy this garment, it has all this information in it, all this data. You take it home, and you put it in your wardrobe. And of course, not in the near future, but eventually, our wardrobes will be full of data. Every garment will have a digital product passport. That's the ambition.
The ambition, yes.
And then what does this mean? What are the benefits and the risks of having a wardrobe full of data? So one can imagine the benefits for the brands. In one way, I would say, if they can control this data in some way, then they can see what's in the wardrobes. And I wonder if you have any insights into the benefits and the risks of this, and what does this mean for the consumer, and what does it mean for the brand?
Well, a great question, because data is a tricky subject. You have benefits of collecting data, both for consumers and brands. And of course, you have the downside of it. So, of course, the benefits we all know, brands can get to know their consumers better, right? They will not need to sell everything to anybody. It will be more specified, right? Tailored for a specific customer. So you as a customer will not receive unnecessary emails, push notifications, or any sort of communication from the brand you're not interested about. You will receive only interesting things tailored to your preferences, to your taste. Imagine if the brand knows your sizing, your taste in items, your style, where you go, where you work, what do you actually need in your wardrobe, right? They know the places you go to, they know the weather outside your house, right? So they can just recommend specific things. That's an advantage for a customer. And same for a brand, because consumers will buy that exact garment. So it's like a circle. Consumers share more data, brands sell more items, but not just everything, only specific things. Makes our life easier. But there, of course, is a problem. And again, I don't know if it's an insight, but what I've seen lately, especially with the younger generation, I think that they don't really want to share their data. They're very aware of what they're sharing, to who, what. They don't press accept cookies. They read sometimes all that information that is on the website saying, okay, you're sharing this and that, and they don't want to share it anymore. They don't want to be tracked. They don't want to share all that. So I think it's important that brands are very clear about what data they're collecting, because this can lead to miscommunication between the consumer and the brand, and can actually, let's say, upset the end customer. They can feel manipulated. That's not a good thing if you want to keep the customer. You don't want him to get surprised, oh, I didn't share that information. I didn't see that I'm sharing my, I don't know, location, but the brand knows everything about me. They can get stressed over it. So it's very important for brands to follow the laws like GDPR and other laws about the privacy. It's extremely important that brands put out there what they're collecting about the customer. So it's a risk for
And
them.
how
You
does
don't want your consumer to feel, manipulated. Yeah.
and how does blockchain how's blockchain related to this ensuring security, transparency, traceability, all that kind of thing? How does blockchain relate to DPPs? How are they working together?
Well, blockchain is a great technology. So the benefits of blockchains, let's talk about brands and talk about consumers separately. So blockchain, let's simplify it, is technology that enables brands to add the information and they can be sure that their information will not be deleted. Usually brands use databases. And imagine you have a database or you just have an Excel file. Small brands, by research, still use Excel files. They don't even use different CRMs or ERPs that exist on the market. Yes, surprisingly, we had a research for over 300 small brands, and only 40%, yes, 40% of them used ERPs and CRMs and like Shopify and like GoDaddy and all the other brands. The rest still have the information about their items, like collections, production, all in separate places in Excel files on their computer, some stored on cloud, some even not. So, yes. And imagine you as a brand, you're a small brand, you have an intern, let's say, that comes to your workspace, gets access to the data, accidentally deletes all that data. That's it. And you cannot restore it sometimes. Sometimes you can, sometimes you cannot. And it's gone. And then the end user will never see what happened to that data. Why does it change? But if you're doing things on blockchain, you can track every single thing. So you can add every information, every line you're going to add, you can track the history of it. So you can track, okay, this was the first message. Okay, the brand put that the production was there and there. Okay, they add the second block of information. They add that, okay, it was sold there and there to this customer. You can hide the customer name, of course. And then if you, as an end user, find that item, let's say in a vintage store, somewhere in Spain, it's an American brand, you find it somewhere in Spain, but it has a digital passport on it that is on blockchain. You can check all the history, that where it was first produced, what collection was it from, and you can check if the item is real. There are a lot of benefits, like, okay, authentication, one of the biggest problems of fashion still, especially luxury fashion. The amount of counterfeit and fakes on the market, still crazy, and brands are trying to fight with it. Digital product passport on blockchain can sort that out, because you can be sure that this is a genuine product produced there in this collection this year. You can link it to the database of the brand and you can check that information, so you'll be sure you're buying a real item. You can see who had it before you, when it was first bought, purchased, right? When it was resold the first time, then what happened after. Maybe a celebrity wore it for, like, I don't know, an award ceremony. You can check that too. You can add that to blockchain, and it will forever be stored there. So blockchain is like a secure way to put your information. So you'll be sure that it's there. You cannot delete it. It's transparent, and consumers will have more trust in your brand. So it's beneficial for both sides, end user and the brands.
Now, you touched on something at the beginning of the conversation, which I'd like to circle back to. You said about the kind of the business model of being, produce more, sell more. That's what we're doing. That's the way that growth happens, et cetera, et cetera. could the rise of data in fashion simply become like another tool for companies to increase production and consumption? So uh, is the kind of, there's that point, but related to that point, is the consumer really interested in this information? Will the consumer really, will the majority of consumers, the vast majority of consumers, actually can be bothered looking at a digital product passport? They're in, do they really need to know? Therefore, is it is um, the kind of goal of DPPs much more about building more business rather than giving the consumer more information?
Well, again, I think the main thing here is still the regulation and it's for sustainability issues. But yes, digital product passports should be consumer focused. And everybody who's producing digital product passports should focus on the consumer. I mean, the question you asked, again, it's a tricky one because we, as an industry, fashion industry, has an overproduction problem. You see how much waste there is. Because why does it happen? Why do brands produce more than they sell? Because, first of all, they still don't have enough data on their customers.
Uh-huh.
If they had more data on their customers, they would produce less because they know that, okay, we have 10 people who would buy this specific t-shirt and 5 people who will buy this specific t-shirt. So we'll produce 15 in total instead of producing 100 and then trying to get customers. So I think by having a digital product passport, this can solve overproduction. And collecting data on customers can help with that. Again, the second question you said is that, okay, do customers really need to have and check the digital product passports? Probably customers don't want to do that. But it's a psychological aspect here. It's like, remember, okay, on not about fashion, but about food industry. You know the gradation like A to D, about how good the product is. You know, you can see it on different products. Okay, is it good for your health or not? A, B, C, D. Yeah. And a lot of companies were against that before the regulation came out that everybody had to have this gradation.
Yeah.
So now, for example, as an end user, before I was like, yeah, I'm not really interested. It's not that I wanted to have this. But when it came out and I started to see it everywhere, psychologically, I started to check out that rate. I said, oh, okay, this is grade A or B. This is good for me. When I see D, I'm like, you know what? Actually, I'm not going to buy it. Psychological aspect. You start seeing it more, you get interested more. It's like it becomes part of your life because part of the experience. And that's it.
But if it's an NFT chip, you're not going to see it, are you? You have to get your phone out and scan it or whatever and tap it
So
or.
on the website, you will be able to see it straight away with all the other information. With a physical garment in store, yes, for now, the idea is that you tap it and you get that information. But that should be a simple thing. You just have your phone, you just tap the garment. It's like a game. And I
Yeah.
think when you will have it everywhere, sooner or later, customers they'll get used to it. They will
Yeah.
start doing it. It's like part of the experience, you know? It's like, okay, lastly, let me ask you a question. Do you check the materials of the garment you're buying? Do you check, is it wool or synthetic? Do you?
Check. Yeah. Yeah. I would do that. I would definitely do that. Yeah.
You would, because it's like a
I
norm
would.
for you. When you buy something, you check the materials. You want to know where
Yeah.
it's from.
Yeah. But
So, yeah,
but that doesn't, I mean, I've been in fashion for a long, long time. So I have a bit more knowledge about materials than the majority of people. And the majority of people would go into a shop and they would see organic t-shirts and they would see just t-shirts and they'd think, wow, the organic t-shirt is €2 more expensive than the normal t-shirt. So I'll get that because it must be better because it's organic. But that is not necessarily the case that organic is necessarily better because there's a lot of issues around organic. I mean, that is about education. That's about knowing. And my big question really, I mean, I think that digital product passports are an amazing innovation to help towards ensuring a more sustainable industry and to stop the push of the industry and bring it to pooling more and having more information about what customers want. All the things that you've said, I think that's perfectly as it should be. My main point would be that the consumer needs to be educated, essentially patronizing, but needs to be educated more that they don't know enough about what they're buying, quality-wise, price-wise. It's cheap. Oh, therefore it must be good. You're buying a t-shirt at €5. Think how much everyone along the supply chain must have made, all the way down to the machinist. Everybody has to make a profit. How much profit? How much would that machinist been paid? So I question whether, like sizing is a brand's styling choice, especially for women's wear. So a medium in Marks and Spencer's, for example, isn't going to be the same as a medium in a Escada or whatever, So they're all different. A size 10 is different in different stores. And it's an imaging, a styling choice for the companies. Digital product passports could be quite easily something similar. The way the information is given or the way the information is not given will be a choice by the brand to make sure that it fits with their image. They're going to tell you things that you want to know. They're not going to tell you things that you don't want to know. So there has to be regulations. I question whether the regulations can be rigorous enough to ensure full transparency to the consumer.
You see, I think this will take time. Yes,
Yeah.
they can, but step by step. You cannot put out regulations right now ensuring to give all the information about the supply chain, workers in factories. You just cannot because
It's too complex and
it's
splintered and too
very
big.
complex. Absolutely. And if we have a challenge challenges that brands are facing now, which are not enough information about supply chain, not enough information about materials, the basics, they have challenges with the basic information, with getting that out. If the regulations will come out straight away, okay, with all those different, questions, I mean, this just brands will not adapt to it. They will not use it. There's going to be a lot of problems for everybody, for the brands, for the end users receiving fake and false information. So step by step. So I think they're doing it in the right way. Minimal requirements for now. And of course, they will add more to that in the nearest future. We just need time for the brands to get used to those regulations, to add that information to their supply chain. So now the production will look differently. So they will consider those regulations from the beginning. Because for now, you have a lot of items that were produced, they're hanging there in stores, sitting in warehouses, and they don't have digital product passports. And it's almost impossible to add digital product passports to all that stock, even in a year or two. You can imagine the amount of items out there. So it's time. And then when the other countries also have regulations.
Tell me about that. Just That's exactly what I want to speak about next, the other countries. So we know, for example, you're based in the UK, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm based in Brussels. So we know what Europe wants to do. It's very clear. The European Union have been very clear about placing the DPPs at a central point of their Green Deal. So garments being made in Europe have to have a DPP by 2030 latest. They have to be starting now to integrate them. And any garments being sold into Europe have to have a DPP. But of course, these are regulations for the 27 European countries, not the UK. So the UK will have its own regulations, and certainly not the States or South America or Asia. So how is that going to work with bringing together regulations globally for DPPs?
Well, you see, there is no information out there yet saying what it's going to be exactly, but we don't have any regulations implemented yet. But whenever another country is putting out those regulations, other countries also start thinking that the Trade Department, yeah, they see those regulations coming into place. So they know that it's a good initiative. They're going to see how it works. And they are discussing it.
Mm-hmm.
There's not much information out there, or information I also can share. We are in touch with them. We're still waiting for their response, but they are right now presenting other regulations for the eco design for sustainable products, that they should have digital identities. But again, this is all very new and there's not enough information out there yet. But again, the rumor has it that yes, UK, US will all have their own regulations. And it's important, what people are discussing right now is that those regulations are aligned with the EU regulations, because brands, they usually sell worldwide, and
Yeah.
you cannot have different passports for every single country. You want to have one. So it means that countries should just copy that at the beginning. But
Yeah,
yes, EU is
build on
basically
it.
the pioneer of this.
Yeah. And one last area, I mean, this conversation, we could go on forever with this conversation. I think it's such a huge, interesting topic. It touches on so many aspects. One main thing that I wanted us to talk about before we round up is about how DPPs can support or are linked to fashion innovation. How DPPs can encourage more innovation. What does that look like? What does that mean? It's not just a regulation. It's not just a slap on the hand because you've been bad with your sustainability agenda or whatever. But it is a technology which is about innovating the way that we approach buying, wardrobing, selling, reselling clothes. What impact do you think in the longer term will digital product passports have on the way that we're innovating our wardrobes? It's a long, rambling question,
Yeah,
I know.
it is.
Sorry.
It is. Because when you the first part of the question, when you asked it, I had a very straightforward answer. I mean, brands should start with innovations in production, so materials. If you want to create a more sustainable brand, more sustainable approach, you should use more like sustainable materials, right? There is a lot of innovations in that sector. A lot of companies producing innovative materials, recycled from different sources of materials. And I think brands should look more into that and support those companies, first of all. That would lead to a growth of those companies.
Mhm.
Second of all, when we're going more to the tech part, into the part of our virtual wardrobes in the future, I think digital passports can lead to something which we don't have yet, a one-stop shop solution or a place where all the data is stored. So for now, all our data is in different places. And a lot of brands we speak to have this issue. They gather data from different sources, from social media, like Instagram, from newsletter companies like Klaviyo, where they send newsletters to their customers, from physical stores, from every single part they can. But they don't have one place where all the data is stored about the customer, about what the customer actually wants. How does he enter the item after he purchases it, right? So they don't have it. And I think digital product passports can lead to that, to creating a source of information, a solution where you will have everything in one place. Virtual wardrobe, where you'll have all the data on your items with everything you need. And brands can have all the information in one place. Again, I think blockchain is something that can help massively with this, because you have all the information in one place. You can check it out. You have all the history, everything gathered in one place. So I would say that is probably realistically how the future can look like. I mean, in the ideal world. But you know, things change. There's a lot of things we don't know that will happen. There are always black swans that happen, and we need to be prepared for them too.
I think that was a great answer, to have all your data in one place. And just to add a little kind of personal story to this, which really got me thinking about DPPs in the very first place, was a few months ago, I was going to Taiwan, and it was very cold here, and it was very warm in Taiwan. And I don't have lights inside my wardrobe. And I always wear black. So I just have piles of black in my wardrobe. And I opened up my doors and I thought, what am I going to take to Taiwan? What am I going to take? I need something to tell me what I've got in my wardrobe. I need something to pack a case for me. This is the clothes that you should take to Taiwan for the week. I don't I don't have the time to go in and find these things, knowing that lots of things that I never wear are on the bottom of the black pile, and things that I wear all the time are on the top of the black pile. So my interest was really kind of excited by DPPs because of this very practical, personal problem of I can't find anything in my wardrobe, and I go out and I buy another black top, and I come back, and then I discover I actually got the same black top or one very like it because it's the thing that I always like. So I think the idea of having the data in one place, having the information about what you as a consumer actually have in your wardrobe and what you need to buy, and having that linked to more data to support and supply, and it's great, I guess. More, and we buy more.
I agree. I agree. And one last thing I just wanted to add. I think it's important. If at the end of the day, we will have, as an end user, control over our data.
Yeah, I think that's really, really important. And I think that's what future generations are doing, as you said earlier. And yeah, that's great. Alexandra, that's been a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much. I've learned a lot, and I've been able to air my own feelings.